Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today's video is focusing on this guy. In the past, I've made legal pad holders that use traditional legal pads. Today, I want to do one that uses a spiral bound and also allows you to keep the spiral bound in the holder and flip the pages back. This is what I call at Crafticropolis. But I did that with a smaller version of this pad, and today I want to do it with the standard size. So that's what we're going to do, so let's get started. So I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I've already done all of my cuts, and I'm going to run through and score them. For you, all of this information is in the description below. So rather than make you watch me do all of my scoring, I'm going to do my scoring off camera, and we'll get right back together. So when you go to make this, to get to this point, just go ahead and get your cuts made and your score marks made, and we'll start assembly. To begin assembly, I'm going to call these pieces by what they're titled in your instructions. This piece is your pocket right, and this is your pocket left piece. So this piece is 7 by 9 3/4, and this piece is 6.5 by 9 1/4. What we have to do here is we have to make a bigger piece of cardstock, so that's what we're doing. And this is going to be the pocket that holds our legal pad, or our steno pad. I will probably say legal pad 100 times, but you know what I mean. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut across where these guys meet, and let me show you what that looks like. So our score marks met, and you can see that I cut that across. That just takes the bulk away from here when we go to fold it and use it. I'm also going to come onto this end and cut some bulk away here, doing that same thing, just an angle cut to my score, and on the other end, an angle cut to my score. We do that a lot. It's just to take out bulk, and that is very helpful in this build. Now, the score mark of this build, of this one, goes on the left-hand side because we're gluing these guys together. So what we're going to do is fold and crease this score mark, and I am using some Cartabella felt. It is super thick. I'm making this for myself. I'm being a little selfish. Not really. I don't make a whole lot for myself, but I want one of these little steno pads, so I'm making me one. All right, so this flap I want to glue to here. And I can actually use sticky tape here if I want to because it's a gusseted pocket and the tape won't touch anything. But I'm going to use my art glitter glue. It will work just the same. And I'm just going to put that onto that flap. And then I'm going to line it up right to the edge of that cardstock. Again, I'm just making a bigger piece of cardstock here. So I'm going to lay that down. I'm going to rub that in. Let me get my cloth so I can pick up any excess glue. And I just want to make sure when I close this over, we're lined up nice on this edge. So before the glue dries, you might even want to pick it up and kind of press it down kind of flat. And this right here will close up later. That's actually the bottom of our pocket, and it'll get closed up later. We need to do some work to the inside of this before we get there. So now let's do this. Let's prep the top area of this pocket. And for this, you'll need a little template. So this little template is 5 3/4 by 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half to find the center. Now you can create one of these and use it for every single one of these that you create, or you can just make one every time out of a scrap. Either way works. So I found the middle there with my fold. And now what I need to do is find the center of the top of this guy. And he is 6.5, so we should be on 3 1/4 here and 3 1/4 here. So you see what I did there? I'm using that as my center point, and I'm 1, 2, 3 1/4 inch away here, and I'm 1, 2, 3 1/4 inch away there, and I'm going to make a pencil mark. Now you can be pretty obnoxious with this pencil mark because we're cutting this away. As long as you don't make it longer than 1/2 inch long, you can make a pretty dark mark there, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that center point with that pencil mark. So I'll just line this guy up like so. And this is just the easiest way for me to do this. What you actually end up with are these two little kind of like, we called them teeth in class, these little teeth, and they're 3/8 of an inch. And to me, this was so much easier than trying to measure 3/8 on both ends and make the cut. So this is what I've done here. You can see my pencil mark. I've got that little mark there, and there's my little teeth we're going to leave behind. Now I want to cut through this, and when I do, I'll be cutting through 2 layers, okay? So I've got it closed, and what I do to do this is I cut this side pencil mark straight down. So I make that one first, and then I'm going to come to this one and make this one. Then I put this in my trimmer to trim the rest. So I make those little marks, take my trimmer, and I'm just going to line it up on that 1/2 inch. and making sure not to cut those little teeth away. I want to leave them, okay? I'm going to push upward and back. And then what I do to make this super easy is just come in here and just put my scissors in to finish this cut off. I like to put my scissors back. I think I get a straighter cut that way. But you see how I did that? And then I'll come here and do the same. Just snip that little bit. Perfect. These guys you don't need, but you can use them for templates next time if you want. I'm going to put those aside. Now, this is a weird assembly. You're going to have to just stick with me. But this guy, this is actually the closure of this pocket, but we don't close it now. We're going to leave it open and prep another piece for it. The other piece we're going to prep for it is called the pad cover, and it's 7 by 9 1/4. Okay, so I've already scored it, and this one you score 1/2 inch in and 1 inch in, so you end up with something that looks like this. Okay, so when you fold your scores, you don't have to super crease these down because we're looking for kind of a box side, so this works perfect just like this. Now what we're going to do is come back to that pocket. Okay, I want to open this up, and what I want you to pay attention to here is your flap is on the bottom of the right hand. There's no flap here, and this guy is going to get glued here. Now, how are we going to glue it? I want you to watch this. This is important, okay? This first score section is a spine, and this is a glue tab. Okay, so this section here we leave open, we glue down this tab. And the way I do it, or find it really super easy to do, is just go ahead and flatten that glue tab down and take your glue and actually apply it to the pocket itself. So I'm going to run this glue just up this little area. You can really see it on this green. This is good. We're all the way up to the tooth. We'll keep calling that a tooth. This little piece is going to overlap here, but don't worry, we'll cut that away in a minute. So you hear my spine is at the top, my glue flap is underneath, and I'm going to lay that glue flap in and line it up to the edge. Line it up bottom to top and to the edge. I may even stand it up, press that down so I know that my bottom is lining up. And then I'm going to get my cloth and press, press, press. Now you might be thinking, Maymay, why didn't you just put it behind? Why don't you take that flap and put it behind? I'm actually going to close this flap up in the pocket itself. So I want to turn this over so you can see this, okay? Do you see where I told you it's going to hang over? That's perfectly fine. We're going to cut that away in just a second, okay? So this is what we've got. This guy was our right side pocket, this was our left side pocket, and now this is the pad cover that we've put on. And when you see this assembled, it'll all make sense, okay? All right, now what I want to do is I want to close this up, okay? The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to come right here to this glue flap that we just glued down, and I'm going to apply glue all along here, not putting glue on my spine. That spine is still loose, okay? So watch where my glue is going to go. I'm going to run it all the way up and all the way up to the tooth. All of these layers stacked on top of that little tooth are just giving it support, okay? Now what we want to do is we want to close this side down into our glue, make sure our spine will close, and it does, okay? And then press down. If your spine did not close, what I suggest is you push this pocket back a bit until it will close, because this pocket having a little bit of like an opening, like a gap, is actually easier to get your pad in and out of. Okay, so now what you've got is your pad cover. This is the little cover that's going to cover our pad up, okay? The steno pad's going to live here, and we need to close this bottom pocket using this flap, okay? So now you'll fold this flap back. And again, all of this goes away when you cover with your decorator paper. So all this that you can see now, like this flap being on the top, you'll hide this with paper. All right, so let's apply glue. And then we're going to press this down and push that in. You might be wondering why I grab my cloth every time. This is my new favorite trick. If you'll close this stuff down with your cloth, any glue that seeps out goes to the cloth and it doesn't end up all over your surface or your project. All right, so here's what we've created. Let's take a slow look at it, okay? We've created a pocket that will hold our steno notebook, okay? We've created a space for the spiral to live and a little cover for it. But I actually want to put this inside a bigger flap, okay? Okay, so that's what we're fixing to build. The first thing I want to do, though, before I do that is cut this little excess away. And you'll see that little piece that hangs over. You just snip and snip. And we're actually going to have to snip again here, but you'll see that in the build. All right. So this guy's going to go inside a bigger folio, and I also want to put a pocket on the top of it here. So let's build this pocket section before we go to the folio. So to do this, you're going to need your piece that is called the pad pocket, and it is 5 by 10 1/4. I'm going to check my measures, make sure I have the right one. I do. It is 5 by 10 1/4. And in your scores, you would have scored 1/2 inch down from the top and 1/2 inch up from the bottom. You actually would have just scored it at 1/2 and then at 9 3/4 your scores would have been. So now what we're going to do is fold these little scores up and crease them down. We're just making a pocket with this guy. He's super easy, okay? And he's going to live on top of that little pad cover we just did. Let me show you where. So this is our pad cover. We open it up to reveal the pocket. This is the cover. This guy is going to get glued on top of the whole piece, and he will live like this. I'm not gluing him yet because I want you to see, okay? He'll live like this. Do you see how that's short? It's supposed to be. We want that to be short, okay? And what you get here is a pocket on this flap. What we have to glue down, I'm going to flip this over and show you where the glue's going to go. The glue's going to go down each of these glue flaps, and we also have to close the bottom off. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply glue to my flaps. Again, you can use sticky tape on these flaps, no problem. And then I'm going to apply glue here up the side of my little folio, right above the spine. So my spine is still exposed and glue is on the top. Then this guy is going to flip over and we're going to glue him down just like this. And I probably will open this up. Let's do that. I'm going to open it up so I can lay it flat and get some pressure on it. So it just lives right next to our score mark. You see my spine is still in the middle, okay? I'm going to press this down. I'm going to use my cloth, get that glue all rubbed in. Spend some time rubbing this one down. The reason is this side where you're closing this pocket, you really want that to close nice and tight because that's what's going to hold things inside. And when we were in class doing this section confused folks. It is supposed to have this gap. It shouldn't match up on the edge. Okay. So let's see what we just did. We made a pocket on top of our pad holder, okay? Now, you could just make this a pad holder and not, keep going, but I still want to make it even more, okay? So one more thing I want to do is I want to apply a pocket here to the front. Now for this pocket, I've made a piece that is 4.5 by 6, and you would have scored it 1/2 inch in on 3 sides, leaving the top without a score. And here again, we're going to cut away bulk. So where these cross over, I'm going to take my scissors and do a cross cut all the way across the page, getting rid of that corner bulk. You don't have to do this way. This is just quicker. You can cut this square away. This is how we used to do this all the time. We would cut this little square away, and then we would come back and do our little angles like this. But I just find that one cut is quicker, and it just, does it in one cut instead of all those. All right, let's fold and crease our little tabs in. This is what's going to put our pocket in. It is a gusseted tab. Now, if you're here and you took my Craft Acropolis class, you're like, Maymay, you're not doing a square box side pocket. In that class, we added a little bit of room here to put in a notebook. In this build, I did not do that. So if you're thinking I'm missing something, I decided in this one not to do it because I thought it added too much bulk in the last one. So that's why we're changing that. Now, when you glue this down, you'll see that this one is kind of touching, or when you lay this down, you see that's kind of touching. That's too tight for me. So I'm going to come back, cut a little more away there, and make sure when these lay down, they are free of each other, and now they are. All right, this guy gets glued. It'll be hard for you to see. I'm gonna put my hand in. This guy gets glued to the bottom, and he lines up even with that shorter pocket, okay? So we're gonna apply glue to our flaps. You see sticky tape here. These are gussets. I'm gonna open this up so it'll lay flat, and then I'm gonna glue this on top of that little pocket we made. This is just a good place to put receipts or notes, or maybe you make a note in your steno and you tear it out. This is a place to put that. So just some extra pocket space. For me, this is more of a usable piece than a decorative piece. Like, this is not about photos. This is about me being able to use this piece. All right, so here's what we've got. Pocket for our steno pad, pocket for another piece we're about to make, and a pocket on the front. Let's make that piece. I did a little folder to go inside. So this piece you have is called folder, and it is measured at 10 by 8 3/4, and you'll notice that I scored it at 4 3/4. So what I'm going to do before I fold it is go to my trimmer. Here's how I my folder tab on this guy. So you'll notice that your 4 3/4 piece is not the center of this piece. What I want you to be very mindful of here is that you put the 4 3/4 score side to the left, and this longer side over here, we're going to do some slicing on. And what I'm doing is I'm putting this in my trimmer where it hangs over the cut line by 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to take my blade and pull it down to 1 inch. Okay, so I'm cutting in 1/2 inch, and I'm cutting it 1 inch deep. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just making a tab, but that's where I went, was to 1 inch. Now I'm going to pick this guy up so my blade does not touch my page. I'm going to run it down to where the blade is underneath my folder. I'll slide this so you can see it better. Still got my piece in at 1/2 inch over the cut line, and now I'm going to run this guy up to 3 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to run this up just like that till it hits to 3. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just close. Then to finish off our little file tab, I'm going to come right here and cut a little angle to that 1/2 inch piece. And I will show you what that looks like. I'll lay it down here. So do you see what I did? I did that little angle cut. Now, if you want them to match, all you need to do is pick this guy up and flip him over and lay him here. And then you can just cut along that line to get the same angle. And if you don't care if it's not perfect, you can just slice another angle. But I did that, made the little pencil mark there, and I'm going to slice. There we go. This becomes our folder. So let me put my trimmer away. Now I'm going to fold this over, and you will notice that it doesn't cover my folder tab. Do you see that? My tab is still exposed like it should be, and I crease that down, and so this is what we have created. Isn't that cute? You can add pockets. Some people did a waterfall. There's so many things you can do in here, but this is perfect to fit in this little piece right here. So this is all we created here to cover just the legal pad or the steno pad. Now let's make the rest of it. Now this piece is what's called your cover. It's 9 by 9 1/4, and you would have scored this one at 6 1/2 and 7 1/2. What I'm going to do is go ahead and crease so I can see my score marks. Do this next one. This just lets me see my score marks. We're not going to put this onto the book yet. We're going to build this side. Now, when I build this side, I'm going to be stacking pockets, okay? And because of that, I want to go ahead and lay decorator paper down each time so I'm not fighting it later when I go back to decorate. So I went ahead and cut my pieces of decorator paper for here. Now, you're going to laugh, okay? But I want this to be a golf-themed legal pad or steno pad holder. I've gotten into golf lately. I've never gotten to play with this golf paper, so I'm making this one for me. So this little piece here, I'm going to use as my back piece of decorator. This guy measures 6 1/4 by 9, okay? And the way I get to that measure is I take the space I'm trying to cover, so you can see not this area here, but this section over here, and I measure it and then take away 1/4 inch from the top measure and the side measure, and that's how I get my matte piece. Now this guy gets glued straight down. And a little bit of a matte edge. I love that little edge. I do not know who started doing that. Somebody at some point in time started doing that, and I have always done it because that's just how I learned to do it, but I love that little edge. It really makes a difference. Trying to go all the way to the outside edge doesn't always look as neat as this does. Okay, so that's that covered, okay? Now I'm going to move this aside, and we need to work on the other pockets for this area. For this area, you have 2 pieces, okay? You have this piece that is called your first cover pocket. It's the larger. It's 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. And you have this piece that's called your second cover pocket. It's the smaller. It's 5 1/4 by 7 1/2. Now, you would have scored these at 3/4 on one side and 3/4 across the bottom, 3/4 on one side and 3/4 across the bottom. Now let's take some bulk out. Where they cross, we're going to do this little angle cut across here. Okay, and then we're going to do the same on this one. Where they cross, where our score lines cross, take that bulk out. Okay, so those are going to be our pockets. Now before I fold and crease them, we need to do a little bit of cutting up here. Okay, I want these pockets to have an angle on them. So what we're going to do is take our trimmer, and before I go to cutting anything, I'm going to make some pencil marks. All right, so using my trimmer as my ruler here, I'm going to place this guy even with my cut line. You see that there? I'll come down so I can see my ruler. There it is, even with my cut line. And I'm going to make a pencil mark at 2 inches. Then I'm going to turn him and make a pencil mark at 4 inches. You see I lined him up to 4 there. Now I'm going to make that slice across. So I'm going to put my 2-inch mark at the top and my 4-inch mark at the bottom. And I need to be able to see that. There we go. I can see it in camera better than I can in real life. And then I'm going to slice that. And that's going to give me that little angle that I want on my pocket. Now, you can make this really easy, okay, because this is the very same over here. And I did not think about this in class. I thought about it now. But you actually mark this one 2 and 4 just the same. But if you take this piece and use it as your guide, you can line it up in the corner, trace it, and then cut that line. And that way they're exactly the same angle. You don't need those again, or at least these little extra pieces here, and now you have your 2 pockets ready. Now, keep your trimmer close for this one because you're going to need it again. So now for our pockets, we want to put our decorator paper on, okay? The way I picked or sized my paper was I measured from my score mark out to the widest point, okay, and then from the top to my score mark. These scores are going to get turned under, so we just need this section, and then I took 1/4 inch away. Mine actually ended up being, let me measure for you, 4 1/4 by 6 3/4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this down where it is not all the way to the score mark. I'm 1/8 inch away from the score mark at the top and at the bottom, or on the side and the bottom, and at the top. So we're just kind of centering that. But do you see that this hangs over? So I don't care how many times I measure this, I never get this exactly right. But if I use my pencil and I make a mark about 1/8 inch in here and about 1/8 inch in here, and then I cut that, my angles always look better. I've tried the formula of just cut it the same as a smaller piece, blah, blah, blah. It never lines up right for me. But this always tends to look better. So now this guy will, or should, if I did it right, float. See how much better that angle looks when I do it by hand? And I don't have it quite right, but that's how it'll go. So I've got this one, and now I need to do my other one exactly the same. Okay, so we can now glue these on and then stack them in our cover. So let me put glue. All right, so now we can fold our flaps back, crease them down. I am going to crease these really tight. I want them to lay pretty flat. And again, if they overlap here in this corner, do some little trim in there to make sure that they lay nice and flat. All right, let's take these back to our cover. So here we are. Now, I designed these to lay all the way to the edge. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I just like all of this space showing here. But number two, it adds stability to the edge of our folio, okay, when we glue it down. So we're going to apply glue to these flaps, and you guessed it, you could put sticky tape here. Glue them all the way to the edge. And you might be thinking, Maymay, why didn't you wrap those flaps around? I actually designed one that way, and it ended up being a little too bulky on the front. So that's why I left the flaps in. Like, you might be thinking that I could have sunk this page in and then covered it. It just didn't look very good. I tried it. If you want to do it that way, go for it. It just was a little odd on the front cover, the bulk. Some of you are like, no, I never thought that, but that's how my brain works anyway, so I did try it. All right, this one stacks right on top, and it gets glued exactly to that corner too, adding even more stability. Isn't that pretty? I really like this golf paper very much, very much. I'm glad I got to use it. Okay, so there's that. Now we want to do the pocket for here. So this one in your measures is called your top pocket, and it's 5.5 by 4. And you guessed it, we're going to take the bulk out of that corner. Then I'm going to fold and crease. I'm going to apply glue. Okay, this one we were just working on, I messed my measurements up. So, and this is the piece I have to use because it matches. So I'm just going to show you, okay? I've made the edit now. This guy should actually be 3 3/4 by 5 1/2 when you start, and then you'll do your scores. When you make this project, it'll be right in your measures, but when you come to assemble it, this is the one that I had to make that edit on, okay? So other than that, everything goes the same. I just wanted you to see that I did have that mistake because I'll show you why it was a mistake. It should actually line up exactly to where our folder starts to angle, our folder pocket. Let me show you. So I'm going to place this guy down, covering up all at the bottom. Get that guy to tuck in for me. He's been kind of manhandled. I had to trim him down. He had a little shock there. So see, he should end at that little point, and I didn't have him measured right, but you'll have him right. I'll make sure I do that before you see the blog post. All right, so now I'm going to apply a piece on top of here. I love the tees. I think they're so cute. Now, I won't be covering everything in this video like this. I'm going to do a part 2 for all of that. But this you have to do before you get going too far because it's just easier to stack all of this like this now than try to come back later. For now, we're going to put this guy together, okay? So you remember how I told you that I wanted this whole assembly to live inside of another folio or live in a folio? Here's how it's going to do that. This 1/2 inch piece, or actually 1 inch piece right here, is your spine. So when you close this guy up, that is the side. That is your spine, okay? This piece here, which I'll pull forward slowly so you can see it, is what we're going to glue to here. And where we're going to glue it, so this is how this opens. Here's our little teeth at the top. When I close this down and show you the back, this is going to get glued to this side, okay? So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to apply glue to my glue flap on this side. Remember how I told you that you're going to be cutting more away at the top? This is one of those places right next to the little tooth that we'll cut some more away in a second. I'm going to get that glue applied. I'm going to put this guy right to my score mark. I might even put it down and then lift this up to make sure. So you kind of have 2 spines in this book. You have this one that is the outside spine. Then you have the one we built here that's actually our steno notebook holder spine. So let's press this down. Let's get our extra glue out of the way here. Do some pressing. And again, we'll cut this away. So where that tooth hangs over, I hate to call it the tooth. We've been calling it that for so long, I just kept doing it. 3 classes at Craft Acropolis all called it the teeth, the tooth or the teeth. All right, so you see that? And what happens is we're just building up stability every time we have to do that. All right, so I'm going to stand this up and show you what this should look like. Do you see that? You have this interior spine and your exterior spine there. Now then, we want to put a closure. You actually don't have to put a closure. If you want this to be the end, it can be. I'm going to put a closure so if I do put receipts or anything in it, it'll stay. Your closure is the piece that you have that is 4 1/2 by 9 1/4, and it's actually called closure flap. And you would have scored this one at 1 and at 2. Okay, so let's fold and crease it. Then what I need you to make sure of is that the wider piece, the wider flap, is on the right-hand side. So wider flap, right-hand side. Your 1 inch spine is in the middle, and your glue flap is on the far left. This glue flap is going to get glued to the back side here. Okay, so let's apply our glue. Then we will lift this up, and same thing, we're going to put this side in. That little tooth is at the top. I'm going to check my score, make sure we're clear, and then press this down. I'm going to go ahead and open this because I got some glue showing up there, and I don't want to glue my flap down. And again, we will cut this little piece away where it hangs over. So leave your tooth there, just cut what hangs over. All right, the next thing I want to do, so let's look at this. So we've got our cover. Actually, it goes like this. Here's our flap, our cover with the pockets. Our steno pad cover goes like this. I want to apply a magnet, all right? And I'm going to use one of the big magnets. So I'm using my basic gray ones, and I have a minus and a plus. And I'm going to put those guys together like that. Using my pokey tool, I'm going to reveal one side of adhesive. These little pieces come off and they're already sticky on the back. Then I'm going to take him and flip him over and stick him to my pokey tool because he's magnet. This makes things easy. And I'm going to come down about halfway, and I'm going to leave myself plenty of room on this side to glue paper down and this side. Ooh, just slung my pokey tool. I'm going to press that down. Now, before I even peel this off, I want to show you, this is very important when making a folio. If this is your first time seeing one, you want to stand this guy up and square him up before you apply that magnet. If you don't, if you turn him over like this and you put your magnet like this, you're kind of training him to go in this direction, and we don't want to do that. We want him to stand up and be nice and square, okay? So I'm going to peel the backer off of this guy. And before I press him into place, I will stand this up, line up my spine and my flap, and then I can press this in and I know that I'm in the right spot, okay? So this now becomes my little steno pad holder. Let's put the steno pad in. Also, even though I call it a steno pad, this is technically not. This is a writing pad. Steno pads have that red line down them because I think they were for shorthand back in the day. That's one thing I never learned was shorthand, but that's what it was for. And so here's what happens. You open the pocket and you slide this guy in. Now, it might be a little snug or a little bit, wiggly to get him in there, but that's okay because once he's in, he's in. Got him in, okay? And you can see that our spiral is all accounted for up there. Let's stand him up. See that? We turn him over. He sinks down in. And what I love is when we're using this guy, we can open this up, and this piece can then fold to the back, and it's not impeded in any way. Do you see that? Let me move my fingers so you can see it. So you'll be able to keep your papers in, see that, and still use your pad flat. That's what I was hoping for, because I don't always like having to, like with my legal pads, I may have several pieces of paper in there, but I have to tear some out to keep going, and this way I can leave it in there. All right, that is part one, you guys. We've assembled it. We're going to come back and decorate it together, and you'll get to see me finish the golf theme. Let me show you what paper pad I am using. I forgot to show you. I'm using Golf MVP by Photoplay and Becky Moore. I love this little pack, and it's super fun. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. Be sure that you use the measurements we give you in the description here and also in our blog post. And if you have any questions, you can reach out, and we will help you with this one. All right, thanks so much for being here. Until next time, bye now.